Hey guys, this is Lawrence of the Ketones and Coffee podcast. Make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any of this great content.
I'm so excited for this, guys. Stick around because our guest today is a fitness and performance coach. He earned a Master's of Science in Human Performance from the University of Florida. He's also an author, a speaker, a podcaster. He's one of the hosts of the Fat Fueled Family podcast and one of the creators of the Fat Fueled Family YouTube and blog, leading a movement that will empower families to eat better, move more, and grow closer. And so excited for this. I'm here with Danny Vega. Danny, welcome to the show, man.
Brother, thank you for buttering me up with that intro. That was great. Great to be here.
Thank you so much, man. I'm just glad that you're here. I had your wife, Mora, on the show a while back and loved the movement with the family. Such a great job just being great ambassadors for the lifestyle, man. Just thank you so much for that, man, and continuing to break boundaries for everyone else in the space, brother.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, there's so many new people. I don't know half the people, so it's really fun because, like, you know, when we got in, we started this in 2016, you know, with the ketogenic athlete, and it's so different. But I'm just grateful, like, for like starting where I started, because, you know, it's a different world now, man. It's like,
yeah,
keto's pretty darn popular. Like, people actually have a decent idea of what it's all about. They don't have this automatic. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of people, and it's funny, in my community, my old community, like strength and conditioning and even like fitness, there's still a lot of people that are very dogmatic about it. But overall, absolutely, I've seen, like, I just had a consult with one of my old powerlifting teammates who was never a keto guy, and now he's had me set him up with a carnivore protocol. So it's like, you know, finally people are just like, you know what, you got to keep an open mind, even if what you're doing is working for you, because, you know, it's not always going to work. You know, it may, but, you know, you got to think about seasonality. You got to think about epigenetic changes as you age. There's a bunch of reasons why it's just smart to keep an open mind and try to learn, you know, new things.
You know, Danny, my focus is that transition, how somebody would, you know, obviously keto come to us at different times, and I believe timing is because I found out about keto 2 years before I started it, and so I think that, you know,
interesting.
And how we figure that out is about, you know, talking about how we found keto ourselves, right? Starting with our own story. And so that's why we're here today. And I'd like to talk to you about, you know, because I watched your speech back in 2017 at KetoCon. You went really in depth on how you found keto, and I just love how you opened it up with, you know, gratitude. And I believe that speaks to who you are and how you were able to accomplish so many great things in your life today. So let's start there today. Why did you, my first question is, why did you want to get up on stage and talk about your journey?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, it was, I had to share with people how far reaching the changes that I felt from this lifestyle change were, you know, because, you know, you're talking to a guy who, I played college football. My first career I was a college strength and conditioning coach. I graduated college. I went to grad school and worked in the weight room as a grad assistant. And then I got my job, and that was my job. And like, it was my job to learn about nutrition. It was my job to learn about, you know, all the like training modalities and all that. And it was just interesting how I had never run into this way of life. You know, there was low carb, there was Atkins, but like, also I was a product of my education, where it was, what are you talking about? Athletes need carbs, like lots of carbs, you know? And so I had to talk about it because I think I was coming from a different angle. Like, I didn't really make like this massive transformation and lose 100 pounds. You know, I had just come off a diet where I had like really, really leaned out, doing a completely different diet. I was miserable, but I was already very, very lean. What changed with me was, and, you know, if you remember from the talk, I started to talk about like how, you know, instantly adding fat to my diet and, you know, cutting the carbs just a little bit more because they were already low, was just like amazing for my my joints, like my joints felt better. I had more energy. And all of a sudden, a guy who, you know, you kind of pigeonhole yourself as, I'm a strength athlete. There's no reason why I should be doing anything with endurance. Like all of a sudden I had the urge to do it. I wanted to do endurance. I did a half marathon, and, you know, I would park further in the parking lot to get, you know, people generally don't have the problem that they have too much energy. That's not the problem. You know, people have mid-afternoon slumps, and that was something that I would have. And, you know, just, I was living in a 2-story house, and I remember it was just kind of, I played on AstroTurf, which is not good turf. It's like the old school cement stuff, you know, and I had, you know, knee reconstruction. I was banged up. And so I was only 35, but I felt much older, but all of a sudden that started to change. And so that was the beginning of it. And, but it was the increase in productivity, my brain productivity, where that changed even who I was, because at that time I was still a medical device rep. So after I was a strength and conditioning coach, I went into pharma sales, and after 3 years I did medical device. And, you know, there was lots of a high stakes situation where in 2016, that year, I saw that we could win a trip to Turks and Caicos, and I thought this would be amazing to take my wife. I've never been able to take my wife on a trip so nice. And you know, I committed to it and I did it, but it was full of adversity. And I think that extra 10 to 15, and I'm serious, if I had to put a number on it, it would be an extra 10 to 15% of productivity that keto gave me was what allowed me to make those extra sales calls at the end of the day. And those stacked up every single week, you know, like make those decisions that were leading me towards my goals. And so I had to tell people, because generally people think that they feel okay, they feel good until they actually feel good. And they don't understand how far reaching, you know, changing your diet and lifestyle is for your relationships, for your career. It's way deeper than you think. So that was the whole thought process.
Yeah. And I believe that, you know, you were a highly productive individual before that. And I love the title of your speech. You said keto made you superhuman. And there was something that you said there too that really resonated with me. I think you said, I'm paraphrasing, without the struggle, you wouldn't find this lifestyle that's changing so many lives. I think that, you know, speaks to your mission as well, and that's what we're here to do, man. The ketogenic lifestyle, I believe to be able to harness its power, if you may, sometimes it has to come at a time when you're ready to hear it, like I said earlier. And I heard, you know, keto 2 years before, and, you know, it didn't resonate with me at the time. And, you know, we've seen so many stories of people just wanting to live better, sometimes at a point of desperation. You know, we talked about failing health and the right amount of, you know, with the right amount of open-mindedness and curiosity, you know, sometimes to give it, even give it a try. And I love that you're here to talk to my listeners today about your journey and how you got started, because to pinpoint what made us switch to keto, which outside of the keto space is mostly still viewed as an extreme diet. So we have to tell your story. You've also always been somebody that's interested in, you know, fitness and nutrition and human performance. Talk to us about where that came from and how you harness that passion into building your own brand and now coaching people to do the same.
Man, as far back as I can remember, when I was 5 years old, I've told this story several times. You know, you fill out that little paper and it says, you know, my name is Danny. You know, my favorite color is this. My favorite food is this. When I grow up, I want to be and then I put strong man. I didn't know even what that meant. I just wanted to be strong. I wanted to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I wanted to be like, you know, like the Hulk, which I would see the old Lou Ferrigno Hulk TV shows because I'm an 80s kid. And so as I got older, my dad actually, it was a blessing that my dad put me into football when I was 9 years old, because I was like an angry kid. I had to go through anger management, like, you know, and football was a great release. And then as I got older, like if you were to ask me in high school, you know, what are you going to do with your life after? I was still like, I don't know, I want to own a gym or something, you know? So that has always been a part of, you know, who I am. And, you know, it's interesting because as I learned more, I wanted to like focus on performance, on human performance. And, you know, now as I'm older, I'm really just like focusing on like bodybuilding, which is a completely different journey for me because I don't want to compete or anything like that. Just building a better body, like for aesthetic reasons, while also, of course, always pursuing longevity and health, and brain health being a major one for me that I love. Like I'm sipping on some exogenous ketones right now, which I was against those for years. And now, especially with this new formulation, this company called Kinetic, it's awesome because it's the only, besides Prove It, which I was never really into for a while because of like their marketing, you know, tactics. But I actually warmed up to Prove It. But this company is also the BHB, which is like the usable form. And I'm really big on like anything performance for the brain. So, anyways, always been into all of this stuff and learning how to, you know, strategically use nutrition, strategically train the right way to just become better, you know, and then of course, like I'm just the type of person that loves to coach and loves to teach. And that's what got me into, you know, I started when I left grad school when I left strength and conditioning, I was like, you know what, I was kind of lost. I was like, you know what, I need to go make some money. You know, but even then I went back to Miami and I was training a pro boxer. I was training like everything from soccer moms to high school athletes, and then finally got my job, and I kind of stepped away until 2016, June 12th. Yeah. June 12th, 2016 is when I started the ketogenic diet, and that reignited that whole passion. And then, you know, 2 years later, I quit my job and here we are.
And what was that? You talk about, you know, quality of living has improved. You know, you talked about, you know, inflammation was gone within a few days. You know, earlier when you started the ketogenic diet back in 2016, I believe you co-hosted the podcast 2 months after that.
Yeah, that was crazy.
If you can go back to that time, how were you processing all this information? Because all your life, as an athlete, as a strength and conditioning coordinator back then, it wasn't just movement. You know, you had also nutrition was a huge part of your life as well since the beginning. How were you processing this information? What were you doing, you know, getting the right information?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember I found Precision Nutrition back in like 2002, 2003. John Berardi, who's to this day still doing it. Like he's huge now. They got all types of, you know, certifications. I never got certified in it. Like my certification was CSCS from the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Never really did any diet certifications, but was always interested in nutrition, like for myself, you know. And I would say as early as 2005, I was already playing around with lower carb, not really, you know, nothing like keto, but definitely managing carbs and not eating a ton of carbs. So that was already like a thing. Now, obviously there were years there that I just kind of wasn't interested in nutrition at all until 2011, after we had our first son, and, you know, I started CrossFit, and it was like, I didn't know what CrossFit was, but it was like one of those Groupons. And I started CrossFit, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect for me. I'm such a competitor. Like this is, and of course CrossFit at the time, it went hand in hand with paleo, and it just made so much sense. Paleo, you know, like I love to eat meat. It made sense to eat lots of meat. It made sense not to eat bread and pasta and all this stuff. And it made sense to just get back to a more ancestral way of eating. And you know, we felt great. We didn't completely, as we moved along the whole paleo journey, we kind of got away. We went to like primal, and then we went to like Weston A. Price. So we were eating like fermented foods, we were eating raw dairy, and that was working out great. And then of course powerlifting started after a few years of CrossFit, you know, really, you know, just trying my hardest to get to regionals and still ending up far short from it. I was like, man, I'm always the strongest guy in the gym. Why am I doing this? I just need to go powerlift. And I right away, I powerlifted, you know, in my first competition, I deadlifted 600. And so I was a strong guy, but I made a left turn and I got into like eating high carb. And we did that for like 3 years. And it was like this back and forth thing. And we got away from our paleo roots. You know, we got like drive through for the kids. Like when the kids had been completely paleo since they were born, like we just had this like period there where we just kind of fell off. But when keto came, we were already lean because Maura had done a diet as well with me, kind of like a bodybuilding old school bro diet. And you know, my buddy at the end, you know, he kept saying, you got to try this keto diet. You know, he would see me at the gym and he would tell me about it and he would show me like recipes. And there were very few recipes, but he would show me the recipe on his notes, you know, like this is my recipe for paleo pancakes or for keto pancakes. Yeah. And then I was like, man, okay. Finally, it got to a point where on Memorial Day weekend of 2016, we were like at the 4th month of this cut, and we had a just pig out weekend. You know, like we had a 3-day weekend and we cheated basically every day. And we felt so terrible physically. Like we were lean, but we were like 10 o'clock at night on Monday of Memorial Day, you know, we're like still eating. And because we knew that on Tuesday we were going to drop our fat back down, like she was going to drop her fat back down to like 30 grams and I was going to drop mine back to like 50, you know, and so it's like, it just goes to show how, you know, chronic under eating and not having enough fat in your diet, it's going to affect you psychologically. You're not going to have, you know, the fat to absorb the vitamins, and you're not going to, it just ruins everything. And you can look good, but I always say, like, I was lean and I was miserable. And actually when I switched to a ketogenic diet, I just basically, I learned, okay, this is basically what the macro ratios are. These are how many calories I'm at right now. And I just moved the ratios and kept the same calories. And then I had to raise my calories 700 over the course of a month. Because with keto, even though I was eating the same calories, I was burning more fat. And I was like, wait, I'm already where I want to be. And it's interesting because that's actually been confirmed in the research. There was a study that came out by Dr. Ludwig in 2018 that shows that they had these people lose 11% body fat, and they compared, you know, at maintenance, who burned the most fat. And they had one group at 60% carbs, one group at 40% carbs, and one group at 20% carbs. Protein was the same across all groups, which is important. And they also tested the pre-study insulin numbers, and the people who had the highest insulin at the beginning of the study, they benefited the most if they were in that 20% group. They were burning 300 something more calories a day. And so that goes to show that ketones provide this metabolic advantage where it's like you're sitting in your car and you're revving the engine in park and all this heat is escaping. You're burning more calories. That's what you want. You know, you want your body to burn more fat. You know, you want to brown, you know, you want to beige your fat. You know, white fat is the fat that doesn't really, it's just stored. Brown fat is what babies have. And, you know, keto actually helps beige your fat. It turns it into like more like a brown fat. So
I like that. I like that. Danny, hang on one second. This is burning through my my battery here real quick, but give me a second here.
No worries, man.
All right, I apologize.
No problem. What was burning, the mic, or what was burning the?
No, it's burning through the battery energy here, so I'm running out of battery.
Oh man, okay.
So sorry about that. I want to ask you this, and I ask this question a lot to high performers, and that found the ketogenic lifestyle to be their lifestyle. If you had continued with the other high carb diets, let's just say we weren't open to doing keto, since you already developed a relationship with food when you started your powerlifting journey, where do you think that would have led you? Do you think?
Oh my gosh, man! For sure I would be in much more discomfort and pain. I would probably still be snoring. I would probably be about 20 pounds heavier, 20 pounds of fluff that would really affect my health in several areas: my brain, my mental health, my everything, like my cardio, like it's just, and like there's so many insights that I've gotten that, like, I believe a clear brain, a clear mind, it starts with, you have to have a clean diet, because your hardware can only work so well if your software is working well. And, if my software is all full of bugs and stuff, like I'm lining my arteries with seed oils, and like I'm putting trash into my body, like my body is going to act like trash. It's just going to be like, it's like going to be all buggy, it's not going to work well. It's going to stall. So you have to have the right software. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that I found it, because there's still a lot of people, and I know we're both in the same boat. Like, there's still so many people that just don't know. And like, they're trying so hard. They're going vegan. They're eating salads all day with beans, and they're like, bloated, and they have gas and they feel weak. And, or there's people just trying to work it all out, like, just work it away. And, they don't understand how important the sources of your food are beyond just the calories. So it really is, to this day, it's a battle that, like, I know it seems like you're in the same boat. Like, we really got to spread the word, because it's never going to come from the top. It's always going to be, a grassroots thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why, I love to share people's stories. And because for me, if you have a failing health, if you have a goal, if you have something that you want to change in your lifestyle, it's looking to people's experiences, looking to Danny Vega's experience on how he was able to overcome maybe a failing health, maybe type 2 diabetes, maybe obesity. If you start there, if we start there, if we figure out how that person was able to overcome, what type of diet he was in, what type of lifestyle he was living, then we're one step closer to realizing our own potential, right? You've accomplished so many things. When you started a ketogenic diet, you started a podcast, you start speaking on at KetoCon. You have a whole family that supports you. You have a podcast, you're training people, you're a personal coach, all of these great things. And you associate this with, discovering the keto diet.
It's true. It all came from that. You're making a great point.
When you discovered this, what was your attitude? Did you want to tell every soul, or what was? Did you have fear of getting criticized? What did you? What were you doing at the time?
Yeah, I remember. Like I said, like I come from this background of, like, powerlifting, strength and conditioning, athletes, all people who do not appreciate a low carb, keto diet. And so I kind of love that I come from that background, because, people, I think, know that with me, they're going to get a very straight answer. You know, they're gonna like, I can't deny that I built a ton of muscle, you know, eating carbs, and, you know, I did great things. I was a leading rusher in high school. I was eating carbs, you know, in high school I was eating, you know, white rice and black beans, I was Cuban kid, you know, eating lots of Cuban food. But, you know, that having that other background, I'm able to understand how to, talk about this with people who might not be open to it, with a level of authority and with a level of credibility, because it's like, you know, Danny's not just some guy who, you know, Danny's been around the block. He played college football. You know, he got his master's at University of Florida at a great master's program. He, you know, was the strength coach. They wrote articles about me, you know, about my protocols. Like, I've done things that, you know, I'm not trying to brag about it, but it's important because, you know, unfortunately, I don't agree with this at all, but people don't give credibility to the people who don't have letters behind their name, who, you know, who aren't a doctor, who just happen to lose like 150 pounds. But if you actually listen to these people and you talk to them, you're like, wow, this person is intelligent. They've done their work. They understand the mechanisms of action. And, you know, I would even say, like, people like Dr. Baker, who's one of my favorite people. He's a great human being. Like, I always tell him, like, you're the most scientific doctor I know, because he's one of the only people who will say we don't know, you know, because people like love to stand on top of studies that are, you know, poorly designed studies, you know, epidemiological studies, which really don't even work for anything, but that's a different story. And so I just, like, when I took this message to my people, I had to just give them context. I had to say, look, if you are a power lifter, you're not going to be eating keto during meet prep. You know, I got my friend and coach at the time, Brian Carroll, to do like a keto phase in his early off season, lose some weight, lower some inflammation, reset your hunger signals. It worked amazing for him. He leaned out. He felt great. And then I had another one of my buddies who is a freak. I trained him for, he was basically saying, he's the type of guy who can run an ultra marathon, and he'll compete in a powerlifting meet and run an ultra marathon the next day. Like, he was doing that type of training. And then he says, well, now I want to do bodybuilding and I want you to coach me in keto. And what I did with him was, over a period of 10 weeks, I started him by cutting his carbs right away to 100. And over 10 weeks, we cut his carbs down to 50. And interestingly, like, he lost weight. He got leaner. He was looking awesome. He didn't gain any strength in the upper body, but he actually gained strength in his lower body, which, you know, if you're in a deficit, your expectation is not really to gain strength. You know, it's especially you're dieting for like bodybuilding stuff. You're not gonna, you know, you can only hope to preserve as much muscle. But I just find that in my experience that keto is very muscle sparing. It's basically anabolic. And, you know, I don't have to, in fact, I've been spoiled. Like, I'm only now focusing on building muscle again for the first time in like 4 years, because I keep lean mass on very well with this diet. So it's just about context and showing them that it's not.
That's right.
You know, this is not the only way. Okay,
That's
guys,
right.
you could still eat your whatever. You know, go have your pizza if you want. I'm not going to judge you, but just pay attention to this for, you know, certain times of the year. I think everybody should be doing a part of the year, preferably in the winter, where you're lowering your carbs. You know, we're not meant to eat a high carb diet all the time. There's very few people, and most of them would be like in the Caribbean, where close to the equator, they can handle, you know, more sugar. And even them, if they're not very active, they're going to reap you know, they're going to sow what they reap. What is it? You reap what you say. They're going to reap what they sow when it comes to like eating high carbs and not moving.
You know what, you talked about, you know, Dr. Sean Baker, I think yourself too as well, Robert Sykes, all of you guys have contributed to why keto is now getting that credibility that it deserves, right? Before, people would know keto from some false article that
It still happens.
It's bad for you and everything. Yeah, it does still happen. But, you know, with people like you in the space that's driving keto forward and, you know, just, you know, breaking boundaries and really educating people, right? With you know, with real experiences, with real scientific backgrounds, and you guys are just killing it out there, man. So just thankful for your contribution, man. Because this topic, the topic of, you know, ketogenic fitness and performance, only a few of you guys can really talk about it. And you talked about the variables in terms of, you know, hitting monthly goals for your clients and all of that. Is it still regimented? Obviously, you're still doing like
macros,
meal
and things
preps,
like that.
macros, and everything. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like most people really love that, you know, like, and it's funny because like a lot of the time I try to ask my clients, you know, like, hey, can I take away, can we remove the macro part of it? But it's like, even if I just give them like the quantities, right? And just forget about the macros. No, they want to have their macros most of the time. Number one. Number two, they'll start entering their meals into a macro calculator, which is redundant because you should know that by now, like I measured everything that you have, the measurements equal those macros. And then they'll be like, they'll text me and they'll be like, well, my macros are different than the macros you gave me. I'm like, yeah, but you don't have yours matched to the USDA database. There's a bunch of junk on these apps, you know? I really do want to get people away from that. You know, even though I myself, I'm very data driven. I love to do it. But I think it's this too much of an obsession with tactics and not enough of attention being paid to strategy. And I noticed that, people need to have the perfect macros. They need to have the perfect regimen, but they don't know how to handle adversity, or they don't know how to withstand urges when they're triggered in certain areas. And that's like a big deal for me now with my coaching and group coaching. I just went through that yesterday with one of my clients, just kind of talking them through this situation. Look, you know, we have to change things. You have very deeply ingrained patterns that got you locked in this loop where you start the day off well, and then all of a sudden at the end of the day, there's a decision being made, and then you feel bad, and then you're judging yourself morally because you made a poor poor eating decision, and then you wake up the next morning and you say, today's going to be the day. There has to be, and so like for me, I love the tactics. You know, I'm very obsessed, that I've always been obsessive about, you know, writing good training plans, writing good meal plans. But in reality, the more simple it is, the better. And that's something that people are like, well, I don't want simple. I want cutting edge. It's like, yeah, but if you understand like what works, even from a menu standpoint, if you could eat the same thing, relatively the same thing every day, you're reducing the variables, like you mentioned, and you're actually seeing what's working, what's not working, right? Your body's relaxed because your body kind of has a good idea of what it's going to eat. You're not overdoing it like with too much intermittent fasting and, you know, having this wildly swinging pendulum where you're fasting and then you're feasting to a point where you're not eating the right foods, or it's so, again, it's literally, it comes down to, and I've noticed in my experience as a coach, is like getting people to kind of renew their minds, you know, like I've had people that have done way better with 75 hard, which is really just 5 things a day that don't involve macros, that literally just say follow a diet and do not cheat. Don't drink alcohol, you know, drink a gallon of water, all that. And they've done better than they did with me previous months before with the perfect program. So people are still like kind of stuck on that. Like I do a lot of education. That's very important to me is you know, I tell my clients, especially my one-on-one clients, look, my goal for this relationship is speak up when you have questions, speak up when you have concerns, and do what I tell you when we talk about it. Because I you know, I can't help you if I don't know, number one, and number two, I can't help you if you don't execute. So we've had a lot of success with that because people like end up saying, well, I'm sorry to bug you, you know, like I have a question, you know, and I love to answer these questions because the goal is not to have a coach for the rest of your life. You know, like I understand that. Like I would love people's business, but like, you know, even if it's literally just like, even if it's a long-term thing, like a year and a half, I want to be able to create these people who can say, you know what, I can do this on my own. I see the progression in some of my clients where, you know, they start to ask questions and then I start to ask them, well, what do you think? And they tell me and I'm like, well, you're absolutely right. Like you start to see like, wow, maybe I can trust myself. Maybe I can trust my intuition and my knowledge that what I've learned, like I've been able to experience this before. I've learned from it. Danny taught it for me, or I experienced it. So yeah, that people still get, people still love macros. It's like,
so you talked about clients, you know, needing longer coaching. Why do you think some people need longer coaching than others?
Some people love to go through like just have a coach, you know, like so for example, like some people just love to say, you know what, I don't have the time right now to invest in like learning. I just want to get my plan, show up and execute. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Because, you know, decision fatigue is a major thing, especially nowadays where we have so much information, you know, to have to process this information, filter out what's valid, what's not valid. You kind of don't know what's valid, what's not valid, because all of it is shiny and pretty and it looks good and it looks like it makes sense. Other people like have a long-term goal, you know, like if you have like someone who's, I've had people with, you know, 100-pound goals, 60-pound goals, things like that. It's going to take us a while because we are going to be very disciplined. You know, I am not comfortable with like ongoing high weight loss every single week. You know, it does make sense if someone who's like, you know, 430 pounds for them to lose like 5-7 pounds a week for the first couple of weeks. That's going to happen, especially even just the beginning from the amount of water someone that size is carrying. That's going to be expelled when their insulin goes down and their kidneys start just dumping water and electrolytes. But as the time goes on, they should want to take that long game approach. And so a lot of them really do buy into that, and they gladly stick with me. Like I've had several clients that have been with me, you know, a year plus, you know, and continue to be with me. Sometimes I'll have a client, I've had this a few times, a client that's with me. I've had several clients that are with me for a year plus, take like almost a year off and then come back with me a year plus. And then I have one that just left right now again, you know, that we have, this is not something that you can afford all the time, especially one-on-one. So, you know, it is unfortunately one of the first things to go if you're trying to save some money. But you know, people, I think like if they're engaged and if they are open-minded, at least with me, and they're open to like learning, I think they're going to eventually get to a point where they outgrow me, you know?
What's their shortest coaching program? The shortest time frame?
Oh, well, I mean, you know,
3 months?
I've had people like sign up with me for a month. You know, I've had people, you know, do a consult, for example, like if we do like a half an hour consult or a 1 hour consult, that always comes with like, you know, kind of like a sample meal plan and a sample like training plan for the month. So there's when I used to have, you know, like you can have the option, but I never force people to sign long-term contracts. I think it's important to have, like, usually people are on a subscription and they'd have to cancel their subscription. But like, I think it's important for my clients to be able to evaluate me as a coach. And sometimes it's not good chemistry. Sometimes I'm not the right person to deliver the right message. Sometimes someone else is going to deliver that same message and it's going to stick. And that's why it's okay to have like a lot of coaches, because a lot of time, again, you know, it just, and it, like you said, it's a timing sometimes. Sometimes that doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I've had clients there too, where it's like they hired me, but they really didn't kind of put that effort into it. And then like 2 years later, they're like, you know, remember, you know, I was with you for like a month or two and didn't really do anything. And now I'm ready. And then they do.
Yeah. I believe that, you know, when they're ready and they did do your program before and didn't work, but when they're ready, they'll come back to you and say, you know, thank you for for teaching me. It's education in the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
it's all about that. I want to jump to the topic that I really want to talk about, and I want to make sure that we have enough time. I'd like to get your opinion on running a keto family.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Let's get into that. How old were the boys when you started them on this diet, on this keto lifestyle?
Let's see. That was Desmond was 5 and Dean was 2. So, I mean, they were born basically into like a paleo lifestyle. Like they were both weaned with, you know, raw liver and soft boiled egg yolks. That was the first foods that they ate. They didn't know what a cake was. They didn't know what candy was. They didn't know what anything like that was. So they started at like, Desmond was 5, and Desmond was actually really easy for us because he had a really good base of paleo. And I gotta say that like the boys aren't always keto, but like it's interesting. They have these habits and this baseline that it's part of their DNA now because of how long they've eaten this way. And so like even if they have like sweet potatoes or rice or all this stuff, most of the time they're gonna eat their meat first. And then they're going to go for the carbs. And a lot of the time, a lot of the carbs are left over. And that's, I think, interesting because I think that's like, that goes to show having that good base is really helpful. Kids don't have to be keto, but kids are very, very unhealthy nowadays. Like my sons have done, you know, they train jujitsu, they've done gymnastics, Desmond has done obstacle course races. And I've seen some of these children that are, you know, his age. He did his first obstacle course race, I think when he was like 7 or 8. And like there were kids that were having a hard time getting up like an inclined, you know, like platform, like that it literally is just like on an incline, having a hard time getting up that. And so these kids, they're overweight, they're weak. And so, and a lot of these kids also, my children, you know, they don't have really like, they don't have computers. They don't have like video games. Someone gave us an Xbox 360. So they play Xbox 360 every now and then. But they're almost always outside. So do they have to be keto? I personally don't think so. I don't think it would hurt them, not one bit. And you know, no one can really tell us anything because we're the picture of health, you know, like we have 2 boys who are, you know, lean. They're not small. They're perfect size. Uh-oh.
Danny, sorry, I got kicked out, but you were saying Xbox 360?
Yeah. So they got an Xbox 360. They play that every now and then, but no one can really tell us anything, right? Because like, you know, we're like the picture of health. You know, the boys they're lean. They have high energy. They aren't undergrown. Like they're perfect size. Desmond's off the charts. Dean is perfectly within the higher end of the size, you know? So, I just think it makes life much easier too. It gives them much more stable energy levels with their growing brains and helps with behavior. And like we always say, like it's not because we want them to eat perfectly keto all the time. It's because we basically are teaching them that if something goes wrong with their health, that the first thing they're going to do is not run to the doctor. It's going to see like, what am I eating?
Yes.
Like, what's my lifestyle? And I think we have to get back to that as a society. I don't think we ever will on the whole, but we're going to freaking try to, you know, explain this to as many people as possible because we will reduce suffering. We'll reduce this ongoing like juggernaut of chronic disease that's getting people are getting younger and younger having these issues. You know, it's getting terrible.
Danny, you gotta do it, man. You man, I love your mission. You and your family. I think this is a huge thing for even for our community, right? People are confused on what to feed their kids. I'm confused. I sometimes struggle to understand which foods I can feed my kid. I have a 2-year-old, and I'm not really sure what to feed her. I eat eggs, steak, bacon, all of that, but really sometimes when you're outside, it's easy to just give him fast food, and and for you that doesn't match with your lifestyle, and so you want to be able to give them the right food like you're giving yourself. Like why would you give your kid something that you won't eat yourself, right? So love what you're doing, guys. I appreciate your time, Danny.
Thank you, brother.
Did we miss anything? What are you planning? Are you planning? Are you doing a project that you want to talk to us about?
Yeah, I have a little idea that I'm doing right now. I'm bodybuilding. I'm doing some targeted keto right now, and I'm not gonna divulge anything yet, but I think I might turn it into a program. It all depends on how well it goes. So I'm taking pictures of what I'm eating, and I'm just kind of keeping the just looking at what the results are looking like, and we'll see. It's going really well for the last 2 weeks, but that's about it. Other than that, like we always, we can always grow our community more with our coaching, and that's at fatfueledphysique.com. We're always willing to help people with consults or one-on-one coaching. That's fatfueled.family. And there's the podcast. There's always that. So, just going on our mission, continuing.
Awesome, Danny. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast. Thank you so much for, sharing your story and educating others, and, so willingly to share your story.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Bye-bye.
See ya.